We are coming up on 6:30. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Spencer. I am the marketing specialist at Vosges Digital. So I handle the emails and sometimes the tweets and the Facebook messages and stuff like that. And so this is a weekly webinar series. We kicked off our first one last week with Melissa Wilson, who gave a really cool presentation on CI, and it was a great time. So this week we have Jennifer Degenhardt, who I will introduce here really quickly. If you don't mind, Jen, I'll read your bio from our website just to give people a bit of an idea.
Sure.
Okay, so it is 6:30, so we'll go ahead and get started then. So Jennifer Degenhardt, Master of Education, has taught middle and high school Spanish, or taught, I should say, middle and high school Spanish for more than 24 years, and is currently teaching college level students at UConn Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. According to what she has told us before, she began writing when her high school students were not succeeding with traditional textbook lessons. Jennifer's books highlights cultural, social, economic, and political themes and inspire reflection and conversation, both in and outside of the classroom. All of Jennifer's books deal with identity to some degree and how important it is for one to know who one is. And so I have a little bit of, her website is Puentes Language. Here I can share real quick, just so people can see that. Can you guys see my screen?
It's beautiful.
So this is it's a little slide I made. There's Jen, and here, this is her website. A quick little plug for Jen's website, Puentes Language. I was kind of flipping through it, a couple, like last week, to come up with some material for the talk tonight. And she has a really fascinating blog where she gives just kind of a great insider's view to what it's like being a teacher, sharing reflections, talking about culture in the classroom, and a bunch of cool stuff. So please go check out her website, read her blog. And without further ado then, here, let me see if I can stop sharing my screen. And okay, no one's trying to get in right now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, here's Ingrid. So basically the rules of how this is going to work. This is an Ask Me Anything or an AMA. So I will be trying to monitor the chat as best as I can. I have a couple questions here to get us started, but the idea is hopefully that people will either drop a question in the chat, or if there's a break in the action and someone wants to chime in with a question, feel free to go ahead. That's kind of the point of what we're doing, and yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. But so without further ado, Jen, I'll get started here with a quick question. So you said you started writing books. This is something that stood out to me about your profile.
Okay.
You said you started writing books when you realized traditional textbooks weren't working for your students. And so I guess if we're talking about even taking aside CI and some of the other things that you write about from a really kind of view from 1,000 feet, what do you think it is that connects with students, better with the sort of when you write a book or when you introduce these stories, other things? What is the advantage there, and why do you think students like working with that sort of material?
I think that everything about a story, just draws you in more. I mean, because so maybe you don't like the language. Okay, but maybe you fall in love with the character and you want to find out what happens. Maybe you like the culture or the topic. There's so many things that can draw you in, but whereas with a textbook, I mean, if you're not liking the fill in the blank activity, I mean, there's another 15 of them to go before it's over. And I think that we as humans, well, no, not just I think this, a whole bunch of people think this, and we know this, we learn through story. And I think we should embrace that more as a way to start talking about things that we don't often talk about and or we're afraid to talk about. Because if we talk about a story with tough subjects, and I'm always pushing the envelope. Let's be honest. I really like to live on the edge of my comfort zone there. So I write about racism, and I write about classism, and I write about LGBTQ themes, and for a reason. I want people to talk about them, and even if they're not talking about them in the class setting, that even reading the book through FVR, to give students who might not always see themselves in a story then they can see themselves in one of the stories that I write, for example. And I think that's that's important. It's important for us to start having more conversations.
Awesome. I think, something you said there is really interesting, about like having the tough conversations in the class. How do you have any advice for someone maybe who's afraid of having tough conversations in their class or reluctant to get started? Like how does that normally go in your class? Does it kind of come up organically, or is it something you kind of make a concerted effort to bring in?
Well, at teaching college now, I think is a little bit different. I think the expectations of the students are a little bit different, and their expectations of me and mine of them. But I don't shy away from anything, and I didn't either when I was in high school. I think it's important to ask questions, and you don't have to know all the answers. Simply asking questions and allowing students to say what they know so far, and just saying, well, have you considered this? I talked about it at the beginning of the semester with my own students, and put out that continuum of different news sources and where they fell on the the believable, the not believable, or that sort of thing. And I said, and I wasn't pushing my own agenda or anything like that. I just said, make your choices judiciously, because we have to, there's a lot of information out there in the world to synthesize these days. And if you're only getting your news from one source, or you're only listening to one kind of person, then that's going to be problematic. But I always approach it in my own classes is listening to what they have to say. And then I share my experience, and not negating the students what their experience is, even if their experience is only so far gained through the news sites on Snapchat. I mean, some of that's got to be legit, or people wouldn't put news on there. And also present the idea that, okay, well, maybe it's not the 100% perfect place to get your news, but just a jumping off point, not unlike these stories where you can jump off from there and go and look up some information from some more reputable sources. So I listen a lot, and I ask questions because I'm a naturally curious person, and I ask a lot of questions. And then from there, I ask more questions because I want to know. And it doesn't come across as if I'm having some agenda, because I don't really. I just like to chat. That's why I got invited to this tonight.
Yes, on the money there. You talked about a little bit about like your curiosity is kind of is a bit of an advantage, I guess, let's say, in that sense. Do you think there are other traits that very broadly speaking, I guess, are valuable when you're trying to have these sorts of conversations in the classroom, or just for managing a class with stories in general? Curiosity, do you think there's anything else that a teacher kind of like needs or should have if they want to start moving this direction?
I think that we as humans could really stand to listen more. Just listen. We are so concerned, especially in this day and age, with the phones always in our face like this. We're so concerned about when we get to participate next. What's the next thing we're going to say? And it's all about me, and we're very self-centered. And I think that just realizing that if you're in this, in your classroom, that there are other people there, and if you really want the students to engage, you need to listen to them, because I found that, and I've done it in the past other ways, like, oh, I'm going to present. I'm the one who's presenting. I know everything. And, I learned quite quickly that that's not even ever the case. Okay. That I don't know everything. And so listening is a great skill. I mean, it's a great skill, not only in the language classroom, but also, in life. And it's a good skill to model for students. just to listen to what they have to say. And maybe that way too, they'll become more involved in whatever it is you're talking about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. I will, at this point, I will just make a general reminder to anyone that is joined our chat so far. Feel free to either unmute yourself at any time. Do we have any questions at this point? And if not, feel free to drop them in the chat. Yeah, let's not be shy.
Yeah, and I will answer anything. But if you're going to ask me about math and science, just know right now, I'm going to totally make it up. I'm going to produce some el vomito about math and science. So, okay, so I'll ask a question. Just I'll demonstrate, I'll model my own best behavior, and maybe someone will come up with something. So my question to you as teachers, and I know you're like, oh, I don't really want to participate. I just came, to click in so I could just listen while I'm washing the dishes or grading papers. But hey, listen, this is interactive here. So what, if you are hesitant to talk about themes that are, just this side of, on your comfort zone, what's a deterrent, or what's keeping you from having those conversations with your students? And you can leave out ninth grade boys as an excuse, because I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. I'm going to keep talking, Spencer, because I can. I'm just the greatest at the keeping talking.
I've got questions for you too. I was going to say, okay, just as a reminder that because last week we had some interference noises in the background, so I've muted people upon entering. So if you do want to speak and don't realize that you're muted, double check if you're muted or not. Perfect. So anyone want to chime in there, or we could go to a different topic? What do we think?
Oh,
tough conversations in the classroom.
Okay. Fear of not having all the answers is what holds me back. I teach middle school Spanish, not high school or college level. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sorry about that in Virginia as well. Okay. So I'll address the first thing, teaching middle school Spanish and not knowing all of the answers. I think it's great that you don't have all the answers, because not one person on this earth has all of the answers to everything all of the time. And even I don't have all of the answers when I'm teaching the college students. And I just sit there and say, yeah, I don't know. Let's look it up. And that's true about Spanish. That's true about politics. That's true about economic. Students need to also see you a little bit as, not a lot. And I get it. Middle school, they're all like, oh, they're still thinking you're, the god, the goddesses, and of the world. But I think it's great that they know, hey, you know what, my teacher doesn't know everything. Let's figure it out together, and turn it around to them and say, well, maybe you can be the expert on this particular question. Okay, because I brought it up to you because I wanted to see what you know, and I want to see where we can go with this, because it's a great topic. It's a great question. And because I don't, okay, here's just a little, I'm gonna throw myself under the bus here. The research that I do for my books, I do cross-reference. But basically, I'm going with the top Google hit. I am no better than a ninth grade boy. Okay. But that just gives me an idea. And then I go looking. And I think that asking open-ended questions is also a great way. What do you think? Because these are kids that we want to participate in all sorts of things, and not just getting the right answer. Okay. I think thinking, by the way, and I know this because I'm teaching at the college level now, thinking is underrated. Okay. And we should probably boost that up there, because it's not really going to matter if they get 100% on the math test if they can't really actually think in the world. So keep that in mind. And for the person who asked that question, Vanessa, pick something that you know a little bit more about first. And then you can do that KWL chart. What do you know? What do you want to learn? What do you know? What do you want to know? And what did you learn? I mean, I go back to basics, very basic things like that. And you have to do it slowly. And if you do it in the target language, it slows everything down. Okay. All right.
So I'm catching you up on the chat here, Jen.
Yeah.
So Erica, or I'm sorry, even before Erica, Jill talked about
Yeah.
in Virginia, there's a difficulty with talking about diverse subjects. That's very unfortunate. So that's one. And then the second one, maybe you can tackle both these together. Erica talks about discussing cultural appropriation when students wear sports jerseys that have Indigenous people displayed in a disrespectful way. So these are all, super important topics. Do you have anything to say about those, Jen?
Yeah. Oh, here I couldn't see it, and you read too
Yeah,
fast.
I know.
Students that have Indigenous people in a disrespectful way. Okay, so can we just say something like the Atlanta Braves? Is that a good enough example? Just say yes in the chat so I know what I'm talking. So,
I would think that's it.
Yes.
And I'm from Cleveland, so this is a huge issue too, because
Oh.
the Cleveland Indians just became the Cleveland Guardians, and so that was a huge topic of discussion where I'm from. And if there's any other Ohio people in the chat, they might be able to corroborate that.
Oh yeah, I think, and not having the answer is okay, and just asking, well, why do you think that particular mascot was chosen, and would there be a better mascot? Is that the right word? I'm really not a sports girl so much, but would there be a better one to better represent? I mean, yes, there are many teams still that are appropriating things from Indigenous cultures and probably from other cultures too. And you can talk about, I mean, I think kids would like that. What would be a better one? Why is it? Kids always have great answers as to why. And even if you don't solve it, because if you were going to solve it in your middle school classroom, we would be sending you all of the money to solve all of the world's problems. So even if you don't solve it, at least you're allowing them the chance to think about it. So maybe the next time they pull that shirt, let's be honest, off the floor, and put it on to wear to school, they'll say, oh, we talked about this. Maybe I don't want to represent my team that way. Or maybe you want to write a letter to the general manager of the Cleveland Indians or the Atlanta Braves and suggest that, we were talking about this in class, and I understand you're like, oh, but this is not in the target language. It's okay. I'm going to say it's okay. And if anybody needs a permission slip, you just let me know. I'll write one up about, talking in English, because I think it's important to have these conversations. And we're more at an advantage, I think, as world language teachers, because in most states, I don't think, and you can absolutely correct me if I'm wrong, there's not that test that says, oh, you have to be at this level and you have to win a prize and do this and whatever it is. So we have that extra latitude to incorporate all of that other stuff that they're learning in other courses, and in a more relaxed way. All right, so that's
okay.
what we got going on here.
That's great context there, Jen. I would say here, if we have more questions about, we're still getting some questions here in the chat, so I'm trying to go through and make sure everyone gets. Anna Colley mentioned, so she was looking at checking out some of your books, and she says, how do you and she asked about lower level students in particular and the ability to discuss topics like these, or topics, in general, I imagine. She says, I'm concerned that they won't be able to converse because they will not have the vocabulary to discuss the topic of your novels. That's a really good point. In light of the topic we were talking about a second ago, but also in general, how do you kind of bridge that gap in your classroom, whether you're talking about difficult topics or really kind of any topic? What do you think?
Well, I'm at the advantage. I have an advantage in that I have a lot of Spanish speaking. I have a lot of heritage speakers in my class. But what I would do is, and I this is really the only thing I drill is get them to listen. You need to explain it to somebody much, much younger than you. So you need to use words. What you want to say and what you can say are not the same. So pick something and get your idea across, and then you're done. Your part is done. At least you've contributed, and getting them more comfortable with that language. Okay. And asking them, front loading the your discussion with yes or no questions, and providing them with the vocabulary you think that they will need. Some of the books that I have, for example, some of them are definitely for upper levels, and there's having that, but still, even with being a book for upper level students, meaning that there's more vocabulary and there's more complex grammatical structures, the conversations we're having in my college class, they're still at, level 1, level 2. I mean, and I'm okay with that because we're talking about it. And I don't, they'll have to just realize that that they're not going to be able to say what they want to say. And I have that issue, with students all the time. And I just say, okay, well, what do you want to say? And then I present and they'll tell me something. I don't know what it is. And I'll break it down. I said, well, can't you just say, or they would like to say the majority of the people in, and I say, can't you just say many people? I mean, because really, isn't that the same thing? Doesn't matter how many people are there.
Yeah.
I know you want, and I think the college students too, they're like, oh, we're in college. We got to be really, really smart. And I'm like, no, well, look, who's your teacher? Let's, cut that out for just a second. Okay. And I just make them feel comfortable. And so I think that's a good CI thing too, is that circumlocution. Like, okay, what can you say? And, and then maybe somebody else chimes in. I mean, it takes forever. I mean, the conversations take forever, but it is kind of fun. And it's fun to watch them, produce with language that they have.
Yeah, I love that context there. Erica wrote that kind of apropos of that, about like the issue of bridging the vocabulary gap. She says she plays Stump Madame with her students, and then they try to find words I don't know. So basically they're guessing words or saying words and then having her try to repeat them back. That's kind of like a fun, different way to focus on vocabulary acquisition.
Nice.
Glenny's has a question. She said, hi, I teach at a technical vocational high school, and I'm looking to use stories in my class in hopes of more engagement. I see my students every other week and was wondering if you had any experience teaching with stories when there is a week-long gap and students are very limited on the Spanish they can use in conversation discussion. That's a great question.
It's a great question. I love, because I have long gaps too, because I only teach 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so from Thursdays to the following Tuesday, who knows? First of all, who knows who's going to show up? And then who knows who's going to actually do any work? So the great thing is a story will keep you connected. And it's, I'm going to, a little shout out to my high school math teachers who would review the previous night's unit or whatever it was, section of and then teach the next one, and then you do the homework. And so you can do the same thing with the student and just sort of review, catch everybody up when you see them on that week, that after that week long. Okay, let's remember, because let's be honest, you're going to need the reminder too. I need the reminder all the time, and I teach my books. I wrote them. I don't remember what goes on. So you'll need the reminder. It's a good review. Get everybody excited again about what's going on in the story. And even if you have to repeat, I mean, listen, it might take you a whole semester to do one story. Who cares? Who's looking? I mean, are they learning Spanish? Are they talking to each other? Are they discussing something that's important? I think that's the best thing. And some of the you mentioned, Glennis, about the very limited on the Spanish they can use in conversations. Getting some activities where first they work in groups and they can write about it, and not in full sentences, maybe just some bullet points, or or some phrases or something like that. And then you have the discussion. So, you sort of scaffold it. I'm using these big education words and I really don't know what I'm talking about, but you sort of build them up until you get to have the discussion about whatever it is your big question is for the day. So maybe you put on, I'm just using my first book as an example, La Chica Nueva. You're going to say, okay, we're going to talk about the differences between the two main characters' families. Now that's hard question, but really it's easy. It's a T-chart. Okay, I love the T-chart, right? One on the left, one on the right. What's different? Or the Venn diagram. Oh, the Venn diagram. Whoever came up with that. Thank you so much. Probably somebody called Ben. And give them something, a graphic organizer, so then they can pull the words there. I always allow my students, even when we're doing an assessment, to have, some sort of sheet on their desk so they don't feel so lost. Because the idea is to participate. It isn't to stump them, not like Stump Madame. Stump Madame is a great idea, and I get stumped every day of the class because there are words that I don't know from my his heritage speakers. But start them off like that, and or make the questions really simple, so you build up to a conversation.
That's great. Jill says here, well, she actually has two questions. Are you able to put more of your books on Flangu? Maybe we'll table that for a second because she had a follow-up. She says, okay. I plan to take your class that begins next week on how to teach the novel in the classroom. Is that?
Oh, yes. Great. Yes. I'm teaching.
Is that your class or is that someone else? Was she responding to someone else in the chat? Or is that your class,
I think
Jen?
mine. I think
okay.
Hopefully through Idioma Consulting, I am teaching a graduate level class, and it's asynchronous, and it's me, and I'm so easygoing, and it can be for professional development or PDPs or PPQs, or you can tell I'm really into the education stuff, and you can sign up. I'm going to try to put the link in here and talk at the same time. This is not going to work out, but I will put the link in here. If you're interested in joining the course, there's still spaces open, and I will, bit by bit, just walk you through how to work with these novels, and it's so much fun. It has lightened my load so much, and that's inclusive of the work that I put in writing the story. So, yeah.
I'm trying to find it here, and
here I'll do it right now.
Is it teaching social justice with novels in the Spanish classroom? Is that the one?
No, not that one. Okay. It's the one with La Chica Nueva. It's called Novice Level Novels to Enhance Conversation or Enhance Participation in the Spanish Classroom. It's a long title, but
okay.
Yeah. Info about the course, yes. And I'm gonna try to do two things at one time. You just all might be here for a miracle, okay? Because I am not the best with the technology. It scares the bejesus out of me, but I will put the link to the actual course in there, and be delighted to have you in the course. And yes, and the other course that I'm teaching is teaching social justice through the novels or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, but they're good, and I put a lot of time into it. So you should join me because I'm easygoing too, because I'm not like one of those professors who thinks I know everything. I don't. Here's the link to the actual course.
Awesome.
So, oh, great. Yes, it will be so fun. And this is, I mean, it's asynchronous, so you don't get my personality, but I try to have that through in the coursework and the stuff that, the conversations that we have to have, and stuff like that. And what else? More books on Flangu. Okay, listen, am I able to plug my site here?
Yeah, of course.
Spencer? Okay, let's, so the reason why not all of my books are on Flangu is because, Teresa Marama and I, created, and this was before we knew about Flangu, and we went ahead and invested, an arm and a leg and a kidney in creating our own site for our books. And happily so, we sort of modeled it after Flango, so it looks a little bit similar, but it just has our books. And so if I put more of my books on Flango, then I'm going to be losing money on my website, which would be okay, except I did almost practically donate a kidney to afford it. Okay, and I only have one left.
Awesome.
See, I'm not really serious about everything, but that's that website if you want to take a look at that
Awesome.
too. But I am not here to sell my stuff, because I don't like to talk about myself. I don't like to talk about my stuff. My hope is to help other teachers work less, or at least feel like they're working less, because you have a lot on your plates these days, a lot. And in Virginia, en masse, even more, because of the politics. And I think there is a way to ditch all that stuff, all of the stuff that I don't like the pyramids and the rubrics and the standards and all that stuff, all that really education-y stuff, and get back to, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody who's an administrator. I apologize for that right now, but not really, because it's a lot for teachers. And we're still in a pandemic, and we're still having to, we're still having to deal with students who are COVID kids. I mean, a lot of their schooling recently has been in COVID, and they don't know how to socialize. My college students either. Always on their phone. They don't even talk to each other. Finally, this semester they are, because they're the same ones from last semester. It's taken a long time. And I think that if we go back to those sorts of things and educating students on those sorts of things, all of the rest of the stuff, you like things and stuff, my father would kill me as a high school English teacher. He'd be all over me right now. But the other stuff will take care of itself. Okay, you can go back and fill out those charts, and at least for now, and really, get kids involved with language and in the story, and don't worry so much about how they're going to produce. In my classes, thankfully, I'm able to do what I want, and my assessments are, are essays. And students came in last semester coming off of COVID, some coming off from COVID in high school, completely not prepared to write an essay. And I'm talking about writing an essay, even like with an introductory paragraph, a couple body paragraphs, and a conclusion, never mind in Spanish. So I went back to basics and taught them that, and not well, but it's all right. It's better than nothing. And now they're writing, a front and a back a page, and getting their point across. And who's happier than I am? I don't know. Probably nobody. And so you can get back to the stuff that's really important, and whether they know the difference between the literal difference between the passé composé and the l'imparfait, or the preterite and the imperfect, or I don't know any other languages. That's all I got. Whether they know that, good enough is good enough. I mean, I always tell my students, and you can't say this, but I always tell them, listen, I'm going to teach you enough to keep you out of jail and to be able for you to buy yourself a beverage.
It's a great departure point, right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, who cares? I mean, when you're talking to people, and I think truly we need to talk with more people, not to, but with more people. And that's where the listening piece comes in, and then listening and trying to figure out. And I tell my students too, when you where you're talking with somebody in another language, it's sort of like a game, like see how much you can get. Don't worry about being perfect. And there's another great lesson that we can model as language teachers. I make mistakes all the time in Spanish. I don't care. I'm getting my point across, and they don't know. Most of them don't know. And that's really kind of freeing. I think we've come to a place in our society where everything has to be perfect. Okay. And by virtue of the fact that we're human beings, perfection is not attainable. So we should probably just step back and really enjoy the stuff that we're doing. I'll stop talking in case there's another question.
Yeah. I haven't seen any come in the chat. I will ask you one based on what you were just saying, Jen, because I know
Okay.
a lot of teachers have talked about this kind of impression, like something, very similar to what you said, that they feel their students are behind, not only at a curricular level, but also like at an emotional level. What is your approach to bringing students up to speed with, with language, but also with, just making sure the classroom flows well? And do you have any advice on closing the gaps, I guess?
Well, I think first we have to meet them where they are. I mean, and also this is a little bit philosophical, I suppose, but they're behind only because we think they're behind. If we say they're where they're supposed to be, it's just a whole paradigm shift right there. I mean, it's looking at it in a different lens. And when I had to do this, and this is a true story, and maybe you'll remember this story a little and learn from this story because it is a story. Last semester, and I'm thinking I'm all gung ho to go back on campus, hoorah, hoorah, with my face shield. I had a face shield. Oh, it was awful. I looked like Darth Vader with a clear face shield, and I was all excited. We're going to get there and we're going to do Spanish, Spanish, Spanish. And I picked these really hard books to read. And I realized after the first book, and we were going to read two, that my intermediate class, they had no idea what was going on. And they were like, this is so hard. And finally, somebody came and told me, they told us that having 2 years of high school Spanish was enough to take this level. And I thought, oh, okay. All right. Well, I could go to administration if I wanted to, and I could, I could raise a big stink. But I said, you know what, we're just going to make it work for everybody because, that's not their fault. I mean, they're COVID students, you know what I mean? Students during the time of COVID. And I teach a lot of students who are first gen kids in college, a lot of commuter students, a lot of students who work full time. They don't need me yelling at them about Spanish, okay? And they're taking it for a requirement. So you know what? So I just I just switched the whole class around. I met them where they were because it wasn't going to do anybody any good if I stood up there as I'm the great Spanish instructor, which of course I am so not, but I'm a good time. And after that, we started having a good time. When I switched it up, I had them help me out because I wrote a play. I'm going to show it to you because I'm so excited. It's called El Pueblo. It's my first play. I didn't know how to read. I don't know how to write a play. I just wrote one. Okay. And it deals with, you'll see the biracial kid on the front. He's the one who did the cover. That's why we get to have his face on the cover. And it's about racism. I mean, and it's heavy. It's a heavy, but there's some light stuff in there too. And it's not CI. It's got a lot of language in there. I've had teachers read it and they said, oh, I learned some words. And I said, okay, well, great. So I had them read this play and comment on it, and I helped them through it. And then they worked in groups and we got through the whole class together. And you know what? Of the 20 students who were in the class, I think 15 of them signed up to take the next course with me. And, and the other ones either were done with their requirement or couldn't fit it in their schedule. So meet the students where they are. I mean, if they can't conjugate the verb, just keep correcting them, but nicely, and it's okay. It's going to be okay, because we all have 100% rate of survival of all of the crap that went before. Well, that wasn't very nice, but all the stuff, I'll just use that. Okay. So, and Paul and Elsa, that's the last thing I said at the last Vosis thing. Paul and Elsa, man, let it go. Let it go.
I love that. Lisa, we're at about 5 minutes
Hello.
left, so I'm gonna move to Lisa's question real quick. She says, I really want to teach some novels next year, but I also have to follow curriculum. Any suggestions as to how I can fit that in and not get behind in what I need to teach?
Yes. Depending on your curriculum, I think that even reading one day a week is you can fit it in, and then use have them use the vocabulary and the grammar in the follow-up activities that you do. The novels themselves will give the students something to talk about. They want to talk. They want to be able to say something, because how many times have you heard adults on the street or the parents say, "Oh, I took Spanish in high school for 4 years. I can't say a thing." Well, it's not helping anybody. And reach out to me if you want. I only know about my own novels, and I can vouch for some of Teresa's novels too, about how to fit them in. And that's a good thing. Maybe that's something that she and I can speak on more, because they're a lot more fun. You can still do all the other stuff that you have to do. And that's the reason why I wrote La Chica Nueva to begin with, because if I had to ask those students one more time how many pencils they had in their backpack, there might have been a homicide. Okay. And I might have been the one dead, because they were like, we're done with you. Okay. I'm just kidding about that. I'm really totally kidding. And so I wrote them a book. And then after that, it was amazing. Even a lot of the students in my class at the time had speech language issues, and they bought in, and they started speaking in Spanish. Was it perfect? No, I didn't care. I didn't have to talk as much, which was a little sad, but
Awesome. I think we got through the last of our questions. If you want, we got a couple minutes here, Jen. Let's move to rapid fire rounds, if you're cool with that.
Oh, I'm cool. All right.
All right. So I only have a couple of these, so we'll see where it goes. I know I read on your blog that you love using music in the classroom. Who is your go-to artist for listening in the classroom? Reggaeton, Latin music, or anything of that sort?
Okay, the music that I like to revolves around what's going on in the novel that I'm teaching. It's the theme. I pick out themes.
Okay.
Well, it's rapid fire. I can keep talking, but yeah.
Let's see. What is your favorite class that you've taught in your career, or maybe coincidentally a favorite level, like just something clicked?
Okay. Well, this is a little tidbit, and it's not really rapid fire, but I have two answers. One being I had two classes of almost all of them were special ed students with IEPs and 504s. I loved them. But I also had the great fortune of teaching creative writing at the local correctional center. So it was me and 20 convicts. No, they were pre-sentence, so they hadn't been convicted yet, but they were in jail, and we had the best time.
That's amazing. Favorite, let's see, favorite place you've visited in maybe the Latin world, or South America, Spain, or favorite dish from those places?
I love Guatemala. I love Guatemala. I've been to Guatemala so many times. I love the people. I have so many friends there. And desayuno chapin, which is Guatemalan breakfast with, refried beans and eggs, and it's my favorite. So there was a twofer on that one.
Amazing. I actually spent time in Guatemala as well. It's a really beautiful country. Let's see. Anything else that I am scraping the bottom of the barrel here? What would you say? is your favorite artist if you are going to art in the classroom? Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera, is there someone that you enjoy talking about or reading about?
I do like talking about Diego Rivera. I love the history that his art evokes, and the conversations that you can have right away. I mean, it's not just like the modern art where there's a black square on a white background. I don't really get it. So I love people. So, and he's got all sorts of people in his art and in his murals, and that's the history with the people. I mean, there's nothing better than that.
Awesome. Okay, I think so. We are at time.
Okay.
So I will go ahead and first off, I'd like to say thank you to Jen for participating tonight and for giving us, I thought, was really interesting insights and having fun with it too. I know I laughed more than a couple times, so we appreciate that. And I think a couple other people dropped something similar in the chat. So
Yeah.
thank you to everyone that showed up tonight and for asking questions. Glennis, Jill, Erica, and Lisa, and everyone else who dropped questions in the chat. Don't forget that next week we'll be following up with a similar type of webinar. The information for that will go out to our email list on Tuesday and social media as well, Tuesday, Wednesday. Make sure to check out Jen's sites. Her course is on idiomaconsulting.com. She has a personal website at digilengua.com and at puenteslanguage.com. And it seems like if you have any questions about anything that she talked about tonight, that Jen would be willing to follow up. So shoot her a message too.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Thank
Jen,
you, everybody.
last words.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a great time. I did. And really, you can contact me on my website if you have any other questions. I really am happy to help. I love to be able to reframe something for teachers. So so it makes it less stressful for you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, with that, thank you everyone so much for showing up tonight again. Thank you, Jen. And we hope to see you all again next week.
Okay. Thank you, Spencer. Good night.
No, thank you. Bye, everyone.